As we have seen, complex calculations in a select statement can lead to complex column names in our result set. In this lesson, we will see how those default column names can be overridden with labels that are more useful. While this is only a cosmetic issue with what we've explored so far, and it only really applies to the command line client for the things we will see in this course, there are other uses that we can make of this solution down the road. So, our immediate problem is, how can we shorten those column names and make them more descriptive? The answer is that we can declare an alias for any column in our list of results. And it's really easy to do. All we have to do is declare the label we want to use immediately after the expression for the value we want the column to show, separated from that expression by some kind of white space. Here is how we could do that for a simple sum. The keyword as can be interpreted in a couple of ways to make it easier to remember. We can either think that we want to express the result as some label, or we could just consider the keyword to be an abbreviation of the word alias. But the as keyword is entirely optional here. We don't have to use it at all. We could just as easily, in fact more easily, have typed this instead. And we get the same result. It is a personal choice whether to include the as keyword when declaring a column alias. Some people feel it makes their code more readable, while others, who are perhaps more advanced readers, see it as just extra and unnecessary typing. If you are a beginner, or if you work with a lot of beginners, you may want to include that keyword. But if you and most of your coworkers have graduated beyond needing it, don't bother. Just encourage the one or two beginners in your midst to get with it and learn to read MySQL code like your experienced crew. There are some rules we must understand in assigning an alias to a column. The most important one involves whether or not we need to place quotes around the label we want to assign. The only characters we can use in the label if we do not want to have to quote the alias are alphanumerics, the underscore character, and the $sign. Any other characters placed in that string, even a simple space character, force us to use those quotes. Here is an example. Let me go back to this, and now I'm going to extend that. That gave us an error because we wanted to include some spaces in our column label. But what if we do this? Our label is acceptable now. Or we could have done this. But some might feel that the requirement to use the Shift key for each of those underscores is too much trouble, or that it just doesn't look professional. But then there are others who feel it makes them look more like real programmers to use the underscores. It's a matter of personal choice, really. We can use any of three kinds of quote characters for creating a quoted alias. The only requirement is that the opening and closing quote characters must match. We can use single quotes, like this one, double quotes, which require that we hold down that Shift key, and the backtick character, or the backtick quote. The backtick quote can be found in various places depending upon the keyboard that we use. So there is no standard location for that. It should be pointed out here that if we want to refer to a column that we have aliased, or to some other column that has a name that doesn't follow that basic rule for not requiring quotes, that the only kind of quote that we can use to refer to that column is the backtick quote. This is also referred to as an identifier quote, but we won't see this until later in this course. It is still a good idea to identify where this character is located on your keyboard because you will most likely need to use it at some point in the future. If we attempt to use a quoted alias, but we neglect to include the ending quote character before ending an input line, we will see a different prompt on the next line, like this. This tells us a couple of important things. First, it tells us that we need to complete our quoted string. But it also tells us that a line feed character has been added to that string, so it might not be what we want. For this reason, most of the time when we see this prompt, we want to clear the statement buffer in our command line client and start over. So we would use that \c. But if we don't complete the quote, MySQL client will still think we're entering more of the quoted string and will not treat our command string as a command. So here we go. I'm going to put in the \c. But notice that it didn't clear the statement buffer yet. I have to complete the quote, then \c, and now it got me back out of that. I just thought I should point this out before you encounter it on your own and become completely mystified by what's going on. Well, that's enough on the subject of column aliases for now. There is more to tell, of course, but we'll wait for a more appropriate time later in this course to go deeper.